The next step is to look at the individual employee's self-service. Ultimately, Interact SSAS is driven entirely by self-service, or e-services as they are called, and this is what fundamentally changes how an entire Social Security Administration can operate when relying on a complete e-services portal. Using the self-service or e-services, the user can update their profile, and they can view the status of all activities which are in progress. They can also view transaction history and submit registrations. For this newly registered user, we're going to select a profile picture to start with. This is Manuel Gonzalez's picture. Next, we'll have him submit an application to register as an employee so that the Social Security Administration is aware of his new employment relationship. This way, the records of the employee and the employer are linked from here on out. Keep in mind that these are steps and forms that are specific to a country or to a type of Social Security office. This particular form may look very different in another country again. As you can see, a lot of data is already pre-populated, and in order to complete this particular form, I just need to give a name and last name of the mother of this individual and add the name of the individual's employer. In the case of Manuel Gonzalez, we will select this Grupo Gonzalez as the employer. Now we add job-related details such as the job title, the date of employment, starting on the 1st of April, and the fact that he's getting paid monthly with a fixed salary. This is all we need to do in order to initiate the process to link this employee with their employer. The employee registration request will be posted to send it to the new employer to review and confirm that this person actually works for that employer. We'll go and look at all this from the employer's point of view in a minute. First, we'll finalize the second request, the one from Juliana. We'll log in using her user credentials and we'll have her add her picture. Once we've uploaded a picture for her record, she can also go and register as an employee with the same employer. Juliana will provide some additional demographic details and select the name of her employer. We'll also have to choose her occupation. She will be listed as an accountant. The commencement date of her employment is set to April 1st also. The pay frequency can be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. This is, of course, again, based on the common practice in the country. The beauty of e-services is that the employee who is best aware of the information will be the one who puts in this information on her pay and other work-related details. But through the workflow, it will be routed to the employer who still needs to review and confirm that information. For this purpose, we're going to go now and take a look at the employer's e-services in their portal by logging in as Grupo Gonzalez. In this set of e-services, we have many functions and processes we can access. Among them is the task of reviewing and approving employee registration applications for those employees who report through the system that they have started employment with this employer. When I review this employee registration in my role as employer, all I need to do is to just make sure that all information appears correct. If that is the case and all looks good, I can post it, which means it will be submitted to the Social Security Administration. No other steps are required from the employer's side. It's now been sent, and therefore it is pending with the Social Security for further processing. We have a similar request which we got from Juliana. Same story for her. We will go ahead and approve this to send it on to the Social Security Administration. Now that this is done, we can go and see how the Social Security numbers are issued in both cases. Because of the rules in place in this country and based on how the system has been configured, individuals only get their first Social Security number once they have been confirmed to be employed. For this reason, the system automatically converted a request to be registered as an employee to a request for a Social Security number. So let me open up the case of our first employee. Again, you will notice that most fields are already pre-populated by the system to avoid any mistakes from happening during data entry. This means that I just have to complete a few remaining fields. Now the Social Security Administration user can approve the Social Security number request. That's the first step. Then there's a second step where we issue the Social Security number itself. The system has already generated this number automatically. You can see that right here. This is based on a set of rules which the system applies. In my case, the actual Social Security number is based on the date of birth, the individual's initials, etc. After this, I have one last step remaining, which is to approve the issued Social Security number. In short, most of the form was generated by the system, and all I need to do now is proceed with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this number because I will be needing that in a minute for another step once we are processing an employer registration. Meanwhile, we still need to process the application for Juliana. Again, the system converted the employee registration into an application for a Social Security number because she does not have one yet either. Following the same logic as before, we will approve the application, but not before we include the nationality, after which we can go ahead and approve this. This means we will approve the application itself, then issue the Social Security number, and then approve the issued number. To be clear, the system can also generate cards, for example for Social Security cards, and it can print these cards directly from the system to a card printer. So now we have two individuals that are in the system with Social Security numbers. Now we'll turn to the new Grupo Gonzalez and see what they can do in their e-services portal. Now that they have access to the portal, they can start filing their own applications online, and we'll start with a Social Security Authority registration application, because this is a new company which has no further history with the Social Security Administration yet. Keep in mind again that such processes and forms are always country-specific and may be different in any other country. For this new employer, we need to identify who the owner is, and we identify the owner by entering their Social Security number. There's also a tax account number I need to provide, and there's a company registration number. In addition, I can also choose the bank account number. As you'll recall, we have two employees that need to be insured and are associated with this employer. Well, those two employees are already listed here by the system. The system already identified them because of the earlier employee registrations we processed. In this particular registration process, we are also going to add the Articles of Association and the Notice of Directors, which is the list of directors for the company, and we'll finish off by attaching a registered office notice. We'll sign the application electronically by writing the name of the owner who would be submitting this normally. Now this registration is ready for submission to the Social Security office. We have two steps in case we still needed to change this, otherwise we're going to post this. Now we'll take a look at the way all of this looks at the Social Security Administration. For that, we will log back in as Aaron right now. Aaron will be able to go in here and look at the employer registration number requests. He will find that there is a new application for a Grupo Gonzalez. If necessary, he can update a few final fields, such as classifying the employer as a private sector employer. Everything else has been filled in for him already. All the information looks good, and there's no need for any new data entry because even the employees are already listed here too. Now we'll go ahead and proceed by approving this. Depending on the flexibility you want in the system, you could configure the system whereby an administrative secretary approves certain things on behalf of somebody else. Therefore, you have the ability to select the name of who is approving a particular transaction. Alternatively, if it should specifically be done only by the person who's logged in, then the system will automatically populate the approver's name there. There are several approval steps involved in issuing a Social Security registration number for this particular employer, and there's also final approval of the entire process. Each one of those approvals can be done by a different person. So now that we have approved the Social Security registration number for Grupo Gonzalez, there's one last step, which is that we need to issue an employer ID number. Therefore, we now go back to the e-services for Grupo Gonzalez, and we look at the Employer Identification Number request. This application is among the many menus available to the designated users who will operate the e-services for Grupo Gonzalez. As usual, there is not much to be done since the system pre-populates all the data. In this particular scenario, we can also update additional data or leave many of the fields empty if it is not relevant or already submitted in another form. With a few clicks, the application has been added successfully, and that's all that needs to be done before we can move on to the next step, which is processing this employer's identification number request. So let's change hats again, and instead of acting as an employer, we now log in as a user of the Social Security Administration and look at the employer identification number requests, which are showing on the dashboard right here. You will notice that there's a new one which has appeared here. This dashboard is very important because it gives you an instant view of all transactions that are being processed. It tells you which are the new items that you need to process which are still pending. You can see in this application that the owner is already listed here, and if there's nothing obviously wrong, then the user in the Social Security Administration doesn't really have to touch this application and can leave everything else as is. In order to process the request, we now need to issue a number. Generating such an employer ID number can be automated like everything else in the system, or it can be manually entered depending on the process which you want to follow for that purpose. Most of the time, you will want to automate the generating of critical numbers like this, so the system can ensure that there are no duplicates and that the right logic is followed at all times. So now we have done that. We have not only a Social Security registration number, but also an employer identification number for our employer. In addition, we have 2 new employees associated with this employer in the system. So let's take a look at this employer now. Right here is the employer electronic record. You will find all information in the system regarding this employer consolidated under one single record. That, of course, includes the Social Security registration number, as well as a letter and a certificate which have been produced also upon issuing their Social Security number. The employees are all listed here. Everything known to the system so far is available for viewing. Of course, there's no other history yet on this employer because it's his brand new record. Otherwise, you'd see details about arrears, in other words, overdue payments, as well as court orders and legal actions that have been initiated against the employer. Now, let's exit from this and go back to our employer's e-services portal.